Welcome back to Indie Comics Corner. I'm Chris, and today I want to talk to you about Ghost Machine, why I think you should be excited about it, and the current comics they've released. Before we start, be sure to like the video if you like it, and subscribe so you don't miss anything coming up. If you're like me, you probably heard Ghost Machine and thought it was a distributed virtual machine architecture for mobile Java applications. Makes sense, right? Weirdly, it's not. Ghost Machine is actually a cooperative media company made up of some of the biggest names in comics today. Oh look, here's some of them come now. Their aim is to collaboratively tell great stories and to also all succeed together. So if one of their properties gets a movie or an animated series, they all succeed and profit. To do this, they are collectively writing stories in 4 distinct universes. The Unnamed focusing on original heroes throughout history, Rook Exodus focusing on sci-fi, Hyde Street focusing on horror, and Family Odysseys focusing on family dynamics. An important distinction is that they don't want any of these stories to be superhero stories, although the Unnamed I would say is the closest that we are currently getting to that genre. The Unnamed universe is also the one that we've explored the most. So far, we've had Geiger, Junkyard Joe, The Blizzard, and Redcoat. So let's take a look at the books that have been coming out so far. The first one released was Geiger. Now, this is the only one that I've currently got collected because they're releasing them in these wonderful library edition sized, oversized hardcovers, and I'm hoping they do the same size and format for the rest of the series. Geiger is set in the near future following a nuclear fallout. We follow a man who fails to get into his shelter with his family when the bombs drop, but he somehow survives. Somehow he gains the ability to charge his body with nuclear energy, and he becomes known as the Glowing Man. Volume 1 picks up 20 years after the bombs drop, but we find out that he has been protecting his family in that shelter the whole time until the surface is safe enough for them to emerge. Obviously, nothing goes wrong, there's no conflict, and he's reunited with his family. And by that I mean obviously he gets caught up in a lot of conflict, local warlords, mutants, soldiers, a robot, and all while trying to protect 2 kids that have no one else to turn to. I don't want to spoil too much, but this is an extremely strong start to the world of the Unnamed. The main character of Geiger is very compelling to me. I'm a sucker for the I'm too old for this stuff sort of guy that has to step up and protect the innocent. Volume 2 of Geiger has been coming out. I've not read that yet, but I've been hearing great things. Roll the tape back. Did I just hear me say a robot? A robot. That's right, we get a robot in Geiger, and now we get his own comic too. Junkyard Joe is our next story, and our first glimpse into the shared part of Shared Universe. Beginning in the pages of Geiger, we now get to see Junkyard Joe's origin. Joe is sent to Vietnam to join the war, and he joins a small platoon of soldiers, with notably fictional cartoonist Muddy Davis. At first, his fellow soldiers don't really understand Joe or trust him that much, but over time they do form a bond with him. We then cut to modern day, where we see that Junkyard Joe is a household name around the world, but as a character in a comic strip written by Muddy. Nobody's even aware that Joe was real and actually was part of the Vietnam War, and even Muddy himself starts to doubt whether or not it was real to start with. Muddy is dealing with his life following the death of his wife, when Joe returns to him. Unfortunately, the people who think they own Joe are also trying to get him, and they'll stop at nothing to do so. I loved Geiger. I enjoyed Junkyard Joe so much more. Joe is such a likable character despite never saying a word. The artwork does such a great job of conveying his thoughts and emotions, and I can't wait for the deluxe edition to come out later this year. The Blizzard was part of Image's 30th anniversary anthology series and has since been collected in trade paperback. We follow Michael, a man convicted of killing the man who killed his son. While being transferred to prison, a blizzard strands Michael and the other prisoners amongst the Colorado mountains. While attempting to walk to a nearby ranger outpost, the men start seeing strange visions of their guilt. Oh, and a monster shows up to start killing them too. This was a very quick read. I'm not 100% sure yet how it fits into the overall Unnamed universe, except for there is a cameo at the end. I also found the art to be a little bit confusing, but overall I enjoyed the premise and the story was good, just not my favourite. And finally we have Redcoat. This goes back the furthest on our timeline to the Revolutionary War, when a man called Simon Pure becomes immortal. We see the ritual that caused his immortality in 1776, and then we jump forward by about 100 years to see what he's made of himself. It's not pretty. He's very much still just living it up, and he's made a lot of enemies along the way. One such enemy is the cult that accidentally made him immortal in the first place. They've now returned with sinister motives. Redcoat needs to work with allies new and old to stop the cult before they turn him into an eternal flame that will engulf America in never-ending fire. No pressure. I like Redcoat a lot. Not as much as Junkyard Joe or Geiger, But I do think it's the funniest. There's a lot of humor. There's also really interesting characters because they've pulled them straight from history. So we've got Benedict Arnold, the Founding Fathers, even a young Einstein. So as you can see from their timeline, the Unnamed have a huge span of time here. We've gone all the way back to the Revolutionary War with Redcoat, and we're going to the near future with Geiger. Clearly they have a lot planned, and I know it's cheesy, but I can't wait for the inevitable moment when all of these heroes come together in their Avengers Assemble sort of way. So that's everything we have for the Unnamed, but we do have the Rook Exodus universe, which only has one announced title so far, also called Rook Exodus. It's at hundreds of years in our future, and Earth is uninhabitable. People start leaving for a new terraformed planet called Exodus. Exodus is meant to be a paradise, where all facets of nature, including animal populations, are controlled by humans called Wardens, using high-tech helmets. Unfortunately, the world engine has failed, which has caused chaos. Everyone that can afford to leave the planet does. Everyone else that can't, like our main character Rook, a warden of the family Cordive like crows and rooks, have to scavenge for parts to try and build their own rocket ships to escape. Unfortunately for him, there's a monster of a man hunting and killing these wardens. Will Rook help keep Exodus safe, or will he give in to his base instincts and try and escape for his own self-preservation? This book rocks. Of all of the stuff I've talked about today, this one is absolutely my favorite. The concept of the wardens controlling the animals and how they've interpreted each of their behaviors is so intriguing. The helmets bond the wardens to their animals, but Rook doesn't see it this way. He believes that the birds are negatively influencing him. It's a really interesting story about man's relationship with nature and self-preservation, and the artwork is stunning. Again, it's probably my favorite across all of these series so far. I'm not sure if any of the comics are going to be released in this universe, but as long as they keep making Rook Exodus specifically, I'm going to be very happy. That's everything released so far. Overall, I'm really enjoying everything they've made, and I'm really excited about the future of Ghost Machine, and I think you should be too. Firstly, the creatives behind this project are some of the biggest names in comics, and they've been part of shaping what we now know as modern comics. I'm really looking forward to what they can do outside of the big two. I don't read a lot of DC and Marvel these days, but it's nice to kind of get a glimpse into those types of stories with this, but with the creative freedoms of being independent. If they wanted to kill off Redcoat one day, they could. Secondly, we're still early enough in all of this that you could just hop in now and get caught up really quickly. But that's not to say you couldn't just read these in isolation. If you wanted to just read Junkyard Joe as a standalone story, you could, and it's still very good. As of right now, everything's been relatively self-contained, just with nods to the other stories. And lastly, these are just genuinely some of the best comics coming out from Image right now. The writing and the art, the quality is world class, and that's because the team behind Ghost Machine are world class. There's a reason that everyone was excited and shocked when this was all announced. I think they've been off to an excellent start, and I'm hoping that continues for a really long time. I have seen some concern about the way they're doing rights and profit sharing, and how that could cause conflicts and issues further down the line, but we'll just have to see. They've specifically called themselves a media company, so I think they're in this for the long haul and they have big ambitions for these stories. I think it's very likely that we're going to see TV shows, movies, animations, video games, board games, role-playing systems, and so much more. So that's it. I'm done. Thank you very much for watching. Have you been reading these books yourself? Are you excited about the upcoming series? Let me know down below in the comments. Be sure to like the video if you liked the video, subscribe if you want to see more of this in the future, and I'll see you in the next one.